February 28, 1944. The Pacific Ocean was silent under a moonless sky, but tension churned beneath the waves. USS Archerfish, a lone American submarine, slipped through the darkness, 80 men aboard, each knowing the stakes. Their target, the Japanese supercarrier Shinano, a 71,000-ton behemoth, the largest warship ever built. Only 17 hours had passed since her maiden departure from Tokyo Bay. The mission seemed impossible. A single submarine against a vessel of unimaginable size and firepower. Commander Joseph Enright had faced failures before, but this was his chance at redemption. Every maneuver, every sonar ping, every careful calculation mattered. Shinano's construction had been rushed, its systems incomplete, its armor strong but untested. Still, it was a floating fortress, a symbol of Japan's desperate attempt to reverse the course of the war. The crew of the Archerfish had trained for years for moments like this. Silent communication, precision timing, and flawless execution would determine life or death. Enright positioned his submarine carefully, using the currents and shadows to remain unseen. The Pacific, vast and dark, became the stage for a modern David versus Goliath. By the end of that night, the largest warship ever to sail the oceans would be crippled, not by overwhelming firepower, but by stealth, planning, and determination. The story of Archerfish had begun, a story that would redefine what it meant for a single submarine to change the course of naval history. The early hours of November 29, 1944, were tense. USS Archerfish shadowed Shinano at a distance, every crewmember alert to the faintest sound or movement. Submarine warfare was a game of patience and precision. One miscalculation, one untimely maneuver, and the hunter could become the hunted. Shinano's crew, confident in the carrier's size and escorting destroyers, underestimated the silent predator beneath them. The supercarrier had never faced a fully trained, modern American submarine equipped with precise FM communications, advanced sonar, and a crew that knew each procedure by heart. Every signal aboard Archerfish was deliberate, every decision calculated. Commander Enright plotted a firing solution that would exploit the carrier's rushed construction and untested armor. At 3 o'clock hours, the submarine closed to attack range. Tension was palpable. The crew knew what was at stake. A single misfire or premature detection could mean death for all 80 men aboard. The torpedo tubes were loaded, and the calculated bearings locked in. Enright gave the command. The first torpedo shot through the black water. Moments later, the second followed. Shinano shuddered. The massive hull, thought invulnerable, revealed its flaws. Explosions rocked the supercarrier, chaos spreading among the Japanese crew. Damage control teams scrambled, but the hits had struck critical sections, the engine rooms and fuel storage. Panic spread as the reality set in. The largest warship ever built was now vulnerable. Enright did not celebrate. Victory in submarine warfare required discipline, not emotion. He guided Archerfish through the aftermath, observing the damage, calculating escape routes, and preparing for counterattacks from escorting destroyers. The night was far from over, but the seed of history had been sown. One submarine, one determined crew, had altered the course of naval engagement forever. The moments after the torpedo strike were chaotic for the Japanese crew. Shinano, designed as the largest aircraft carrier in history, began to list heavily. Flooding spread rapidly through compartments that had not been fully sealed during construction. Engineers and sailors struggled to activate pumps and damage control systems, but the combination of inexperience and rushed assembly left critical vulnerabilities exposed. Commander Enright and the crew of Archerfish watched from below the surface. The sonar screen displayed the carrier's movement, listing first to port, then rocking violently in the waves. Enright calculated the timing for a second strike, yet prudence dictated caution. Detection by escorting destroyers would be catastrophic. Every decision required balancing aggression with survival. The escorting Japanese destroyers closed in, their sonar sweeping the dark waters for any sign of the submarine. Depth charges exploded in distant arcs, shaking Archerfish but failing to locate her precise position. The training and discipline of the American crew paid off. Maintaining silence, adjusting depth, and leveraging the submarine's small profile, they evaded detection while continuing to track the crippled Shinano. Over several hours, Shinano's fate was sealed not by one hit alone, but by the compounding effects of structural flaws, fire, and progressive flooding. The once mighty supercarrier became a slow-moving trap, a floating death sentence for its crew. Historical accounts estimate that nearly half of the 2,500 crew members perished, a tragic outcome of a vessel both overambitious in design and unprepared for the realities of modern submarine warfare. At dawn, Archerfish withdrew to a safe distance, maintaining contact through sonar and periscope observation. The carrier's final moments would unfold without American intervention, yet it was the precision, patience, and tactical brilliance of Enright's crew that had set the disaster in motion. What began as a daring submarine attack evolved into one of the most remarkable demonstrations of asymmetrical naval warfare in history. After Shinano was critically damaged, Japanese command faced a desperate situation. Orders from higher headquarters demanded saving the carrier at all costs, yet the vessel's compromised structure made any attempt increasingly perilous. Crew members were sent to pump compartments, seal bulkheads, and combat fires, but the combination of inexperienced sailors and rushed wartime construction undermined every effort. Commander Enright and Archerfish continued to observe from the depths, careful to avoid detection. The Americans knew that even a partially functional escort group could pose a deadly threat. Japanese destroyers and patrol boats attempted rescue operations, ferrying crew members off the listing carrier. Yet the scale of the disaster exceeded expectations. Ships could only evacuate a fraction of the personnel before the flooding made further efforts impossible. Communication breakdowns exacerbated the chaos. Radio signals were intermittent, and conflicting orders created confusion among the rescue teams. Some units prioritized saving the captain and senior officers, while others attempted to save as many sailors as possible. Amid the turmoil, acts of courage emerged. Small teams of crew risked their lives to prevent explosions, close valves manually, and guide fellow sailors through flooded compartments. As dawn approached, Shinano's structural integrity failed completely. The hull cracked, and the once proud supercarrier began its final descent into the depths of the Pacific. Enright's crew witnessed the culmination of hours of patience, strategy, and precise execution. No further intervention was required. The submarine had set events in motion that nature and human limitations would complete. The loss of Shinano had strategic repercussions for the Imperial Japanese Navy. The supercarrier represented a major investment in resources, manpower, and technological innovation. Its destruction deprived Japan of a critical asset at a time when carrier strength was essential to resist the advancing Allied forces. Historians note that the sinking demonstrated the vulnerability of even the largest vessels to well-coordinated submarine attacks, redefining naval strategy in the Pacific theater. The sinking of Shinano cemented Commander Joseph Enright's reputation among American naval circles. While the world would not immediately grasp the scale of the achievement, within the Navy it became a textbook example of precision, patience, and tactical acumen. Enright and his crew had executed a complex plan without direct confrontation, relying entirely on stealth, observation, and perfect timing. Their success demonstrated that technology combined with human discipline could overcome even the largest warships. Back in the United States, submarine operations were still often overshadowed by dramatic carrier battles. Yet intelligence reports and after-action debriefs slowly revealed the extraordinary effectiveness of well-coordinated sub-attacks. The Archerfish operation became part of training manuals, emphasizing careful planning, patience under pressure, and exploiting an enemy's vulnerabilities. It highlighted that numerical size or armor strength alone did not guarantee battlefield survival. Enright himself remained a humble officer. Despite the historical significance, he credited his crew's cohesion and dedication as the decisive factors. Every crew member knew their role perfectly, communicated efficiently, and executed commands with minimal error. In interviews years later, Enright emphasized that luck played a role, but preparation and teamwork created the conditions for that luck to manifest. The Japanese Imperial Navy faced immediate consequences. Losing the largest carrier ever constructed before it could fully contribute to the war effort was a severe blow. Material losses were enormous, and the morale impact on both sailors and command staff was profound. Strategically, Japan's capacity to project air power in the Pacific was reduced significantly, altering subsequent naval engagements. Allied planners, though initially unaware of the full details, quickly understood that submarines had become a potent tool against capital ships. Beyond tactics, the operation reinforced the psychological dimension of submarine warfare. The presence of an unseen predator capable of striking massive vessels at any moment forced Japan to reconsider convoy protection, escort strategies, and risk assessment. Every large ship now faced the constant threat of a sub-silent torpedo, making caution a critical factor in operational planning. Ultimately, The Shinano sinking illustrated that in modern naval warfare, intelligence, coordination, and technological application could decisively influence outcomes, often outweighing raw firepower. Enright's operation set a precedent, influencing submarine tactics in both the Pacific and post-war naval doctrine. The attack was not merely a battle, it was a demonstration of strategy, engineering, and human determination converging into one irreversible event. The immediate aftermath of Shinano's sinking sent shockwaves through the Imperial Japanese Navy. The loss of the largest aircraft carrier, still on her maiden voyage, exposed critical vulnerabilities in Japan's industrial and naval planning. The hurried construction process, intended to bolster Japan's fleet in time for anticipated Allied offensives, had produced structural weaknesses and compromised internal compartmentation. The Shinano incident revealed that even the mightiest vessel could be undone not by superior enemy firepower, but by overextension and oversight. Japanese naval commanders were forced into an uncomfortable reality. The belief that sheer size and armor could guarantee survival was shattered. Operational doctrines were reconsidered. New emphasis was placed on escort systems, sonar detection, and air reconnaissance. Yet there was little time to implement these changes effectively. Allied submarines, equipped with superior intelligence and tactics, were increasingly difficult to counter. For the United States Navy, the victory validated years of technological investment and training. The FM radio systems aboard Archerfish and other submarines ensured that intelligence gathering and tactical coordination remained at the forefront of naval operations. American planners now recognized that undersea warfare could decisively weaken Japan's ability to project naval power, complementing surface engagements and air campaigns. Enright's crew returned to base not with accolades in the press but with quiet acknowledgement from their peers. The true reward was operational confidence. Every submarine patrol henceforth carried the knowledge that discipline, coordination, and tactical patience could overcome formidable targets. The sinking demonstrated that well-prepared, methodical attacks could change the strategic balance, even in situations where numerical or material superiority appeared to favor the enemy. The psychological impact on Japanese sailors was severe. Survivors of the Shinano loss recounted the terrifying unpredictability of submarine attacks. Commanders became more cautious, convoys were slowed, and morale suffered. Meanwhile, the United States used every opportunity to refine training programs, emphasizing realistic drills that mirrored the challenges faced by Enright's crew. Submarine warfare became a science of anticipation, patience, and precision, setting the stage for further successful operations across the Pacific. The sinking of Shinano reshaped Allied naval strategy in the Pacific. Commanders recognized that Japanese reliance on large, slow, and poorly defended capital ships made them exceptionally vulnerable to submarine attacks. From late 1944 onward, American naval operations increasingly emphasized coordinated submarine patrols to disrupt Japanese supply lines, fleet movements, and critical reinforcements. The lessons learned from Archerfish's patrols were systematically applied across the theater. Submarines became not just reconnaissance tools, but strategic instruments capable of altering entire campaigns. Intelligence teams worked closely with submarine crews to identify targets of opportunity. Shipping schedules, convoy routes, and dockyard vulnerabilities were analyzed meticulously, allowing patrols to strike with precision. The emphasis shifted from individual heroics to networked operations, where each submarine contributed to a larger operational picture. The psychological impact on Japanese naval planners was profound. Large vessels could no longer operate with confidence, forcing a reevaluation of fleet deployment. Aircraft carriers, battleships, and transports were increasingly escorted by smaller vessels, which often were insufficient to prevent submarine attacks. Japanese morale and planning suffered, while Allied confidence grew, reinforcing the belief that coordinated technology and disciplined strategy could defeat even seemingly invulnerable adversaries. Enright's success also highlighted the critical importance of crew training and leadership. Each member of Archerfish's 80-man crew had drilled extensively in coordinated maneuvers, emergency procedures, and torpedo deployment. The victory demonstrated that technology alone was insufficient. Human skill, discipline, and decision-making under extreme stress were decisive factors. The U.S. Navy institutionalized these lessons, ensuring that all submarine crews trained rigorously for similar high-stakes operations. The Shinano engagement became a benchmark in naval warfare studies, illustrating that size and armor were secondary to coordination, intelligence, and tactical patience. For the Allies, it underscored the emerging dominance of undersea warfare, where persistence, timing, and precise execution outweighed brute force. Submarine patrols, informed by meticulous planning and supported by intelligence, could dictate outcomes far beyond their immediate firepower. By early 1945, the strategic doctrine of the U.S. Pacific Fleet fully integrated these lessons. Submarines were no longer auxiliary tools but primary instruments in shaping the battlefield. The success of Archerfish and subsequent patrols reinforced the principle that well-coordinated, technologically superior, and mentally disciplined units could achieve outsized results, even against the largest and most formidable enemies. The aftermath of the Shinano sinking rippled across naval circles, reshaping the perception of submarine warfare. The Allies recognized that the age of relying solely on battleship supremacy was over. Submarines had proven capable of striking decisively against the largest vessels, challenging traditional doctrines that prioritized armor and firepower over mobility, intelligence, and communication. Naval strategists studied the engagement extensively. Japanese shipbuilding, which emphasized massive vessels with heavy armor, faced scrutiny for its vulnerabilities. Conversely, American naval doctrine began to prioritize networked operations, intelligence sharing, and the integration of multiple platforms for strategic effect. The submarine became a central element in fleet composition, not merely a support unit. The story of USS Archerfish also highlighted the human dimension of warfare. Commander Joseph Enright's decision-making under pressure, combined with the crew's rigorous training, demonstrated that technological superiority alone was insufficient without disciplined execution. Each maneuver, each torpedo launch, each silent observation was a product of preparation, courage, and seamless teamwork. The attack served as a case study for naval academies, teaching lessons in patience, calculated risk, and the value of situational awareness. The Shinano engagement cemented the concept that in modern naval warfare, information dominance could outweigh material superiority. Allied forces increasingly invested in reconnaissance, signals intelligence, and coordination protocols. Submarine fleets were equipped with advanced communication systems, trained to operate in concert with surface ships, aircraft, and command centers. The sinking demonstrated that even a single, well-prepared submarine, when properly deployed, could alter the strategic calculus of a theater of war. For the Japanese Navy, the loss of Shinano was a sobering lesson. Reliance on size and armor without robust intelligence and defensive coordination was a fatal flaw. Subsequent Japanese naval operations became increasingly defensive, with heightened concern for submarine threats. Despite technical skill and bravery, the Imperial Navy could not fully mitigate vulnerabilities inherent in its fleet design and strategic assumptions. The engagement also influenced post-war naval engineering. Fleet architects worldwide considered the implications. Speed, maneuverability, and electronic communication systems gained priority over sheer tonnage. Modern naval doctrine would forever integrate lessons from Archerfish, shaping the development of submarines, carriers, and multi-platform coordination in the decades to come. The sinking of Shinano triggered an immediate reassessment of submarine training across the U.S. Navy. While the victory of USS Archerfish was celebrated, it also exposed how rare such perfectly executed attacks were and how much depended not on luck, but on refined discipline, drilled instincts, and an understanding of the enemy's weaknesses. Training commands used the engagement as a blueprint for a new generation of submarine officers. Submarine schools began incorporating detailed simulations of long-range tracking under low-visibility conditions. The Archerfish pursuit demonstrated that patience could be a weapon. Instead of aggressive, short-range attacks, instructors emphasized endurance stalking and maintaining contact for hours or even days without revealing one's presence. Tactical manuals were updated with procedures for shadowing carriers at maximum silent running, using minimal periscope exposure, and calculating firing spreads against fast-moving, heavily armored targets. Another crucial shift occurred in torpedo doctrine. The attack on Shinano proved that even the largest vessels could be brought down with properly spaced, well-timed strikes. Fleet instructors began teaching officers to plan for sequential detonations rather than relying on a single decisive hit. This ensured structural overstress and internal flooding, regardless of armor thickness. Furthermore, torpedo calibration drills were expanded, ensuring crews could diagnose mechanical issues mid-mission, a necessity after early poor failures had repeatedly undermined submarine performance. Communication discipline also evolved. Archerfish operated independently due to limited intelligence, but post-analysis highlighted how coordinated information networks could multiply submarine effectiveness. Training emphasized encrypted burst transmissions, shared reconnaissance, and synchronized positioning, allowing multiple submarines to cover escape routes and form hunter lines. This systemic approach would become foundational in Cold War doctrine. The psychological side of submarine warfare received new attention as well. The Shinano attack proved that crews required exceptional mental endurance. Hours of silence, confined quarters, and the pressure of making life or death decisions based solely on sound and instinct. Naval psychologists began developing screenings and resilience programs to identify candidates who could remain calm during long, high-stress engagements. Crew rotation policies were improved to reduce fatigue and maintain peak alertness during critical phases of pursuit. As curriculum evolved, Archerfish became a case study not for its luck or daring but for its methodical precision. Cadets reviewed Joseph Enright's logs, analyzed his firing solution, and studied the way he interpreted incomplete information. The lesson was simple. Technology mattered, but judgment and composure mattered more. A submarine commander was not just a tactician, he was the quiet architect of an unseen battlefield. By 1945, U.S. submarine forces had transformed into a highly coordinated intelligencer of an arm of naval power, and the foundations of that transformation traced back to one cold night in the Pacific, when a single submarine proved that mastery of tactics could overcome even the greatest titan afloat. The sinking of Shinano left a permanent mark on naval warfare. In the immediate aftermath, U.S. Navy reports highlighted the unprecedented effectiveness of coordinated submarine operations. USS Archerfish's mission became a blueprint for future submarine strategy. It wasn't the size of the vessel that mattered, but the crew's ability to interpret intelligence, maintain patience, and execute precise attacks under pressure. Commander Joseph Enright and his crew were recognized as national heroes. Newspapers across America celebrated the feat, portraying it as a David versus Goliath victory. A single submarine against the largest warship afloat. Their fame helped shape public understanding of submarine warfare, previously seen as shadowy and abstract, and inspired a generation of young men to join the submarine service. Enright later reflected that the victory was not about personal glory, but the culmination of rigorous training, relentless preparation, and trust in one's crew. The Shinano operation also influenced post-war naval engineering. Lessons learned in torpedo effectiveness, stealth approach tactics, and integrated communications informed the design of Cold War submarines. The importance of information dominance became institutionalized. Modern naval doctrine now prioritizes sensor networks, secure communications, and synchronized operations, all traced back to that November night in 1944. The legacy of USS Archerfish extends beyond its crew or even the Pacific theater. It demonstrated the principle that precision, patience, and coordination could triumph over raw power. Future submarine generations, equipped with nuclear propulsion and digital systems, inherited the ethos established by Enright and his men. The battle is won not only through weaponry, but through discipline, intelligence, and foresight. As historians review WWII, Shinano's sinking stands out not merely for the loss of a warship, but for the transformation it triggered in submarine warfare philosophy. The story serves as a timeless reminder. Technology and courage together can change the course of history, and one well-prepared crew can alter the fate of nations.